Well, hello and welcome to the Get Local podcast. I'm so excited that you've decided to join us again today as we feature yet another local business from the upstate. Today we have Brandon Higginbotham, and y'all have heard me talk about him at the end of every podcast. It's taken me forever to get him on here, but he is the owner of 864 Sound. So welcome, Brandon. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. It's nice to be on this side of the glass for a change.
On this side of the glass. Well, each week we always tell you what an awesome job Brandon does, and I think you guys see that. But today I wanted you to really get to know him and learn about some of the other stuff that he does. So, Brandon, tell me a little bit about 864 Sound. How did it come about? You know, why are you doing 864 Sound?
So, you're going to learn a lot of things about me that you didn't know, JoAnne. So, I grew up. I was a musician growing up. Started playing guitar when I was 7, singing. Also grew up in recording studios. So my stepdad was in a band who eventually got a record deal with Epic Records.
Wow.
And so I would go into studios with them when I was 10, 11, 12 years old and just watch the engineers work and watch the process and, you know, sleep on couches at midnight while they were cutting records. And so that was kind of my introduction into that world. And then when they got their record deal, moved to Nashville, I would go visit. And I'd go up there for weeks at a time and go into writers' rooms and go watch them cut demos and things like that. So that's how I discovered Middle Tennessee State University, where I went to school. So I went to Middle Tennessee State. I majored in audio production, got married, had kids, went into the corporate world, did the whole thing. And then COVID happened. So when COVID happened, we got sent home from our office jobs, and I have a little home studio. I was sitting in a home studio, and I've got access to these tools all day long, right? So I just started sending out a demo reel because I had done some stuff in the past, done original music for commercials and films and things like that, freelancing off and on, working for a post-production company for a little while, and started getting some work.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm building a little bit of a resume again and getting some work and doing some sound design and doing some music. And then people started reaching out to me when they found out, hey, can you record this? Can you do this audio book? Can you do this voiceover? Can you do my demo or whatever? And it just grew to the point where I said, I need a space. I really need a space. So COVID, a lot of awful things with COVID, but I feel like COVID, there was some good things that came out of that too, certainly for me with that little opportunity. So in January of this year, we opened this space, and a friend of mine and I built, this was 1,100 square feet of just open nothing. So we came in, we built all this from the ground up, just me and him, and here we are.
It's hard to believe. If you guys could come in and see the studio, it is beautiful.
Come in and see the studio. Come on.
You need to call Brandon and come see the studio. It is gorgeous.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at, you said you kind of got your teeth cut in the music industry as a child, obviously. So that was probably a seed that was planted in your heart somewhere along the way that this was something you were going to do.
Yep.
But I hear your story with a lot of other entrepreneurs where sometimes, that story kind of gets put on the back burner and you get that corporate job and then you get back in. Did you kind of have that little skip in your step as you started getting back into it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And it's weird. It's funny how I got into kind of this path, from the corporate world. So I worked for 7 years, I worked for a very famous soup company.
Oh, my goodness.
Campbell Soup. And they moved me around. I had 4 jobs with them in 7 years. So I moved around to Middle Tennessee and to Cincinnati, Ohio. But the other part of my life was I had been a worship leader in churches since probably 1998, 1999. And I started feeling the call to ministry. So I was working part-time at a church in Cincinnati as a worship leader and got a call from my home church back here in South Carolina looking for a creative arts worship pastor full time. So my wife and I talked about it and we prayed about it and we, discussed it because the Campbell's career was going great. Fantastic company. This was back in the day when you had a 401k and a pension.
Yes.
With the Fortune 250 company.
Gone, right?
That doesn't exist anymore. Paying for all our moves. It was fantastic, but we just felt like, this was where we needed to be. We had kids. One was born in Nashville, one was born in Ohio, so far from the grandparents. And we really wanted to get back home, and I wanted to do something I loved,
Yeah.
So we moved back. I took that job. I was in that job for 7 years, and through that job, met someone who owned a post-production company here in Greenville, doing films and voiceovers and things like that. So as soon as I left that job, I had the post-production job to walk into. So I went into that job as their staff composer and audio engineer.
Wow.
So that was really cool. There's not a whole lot of jobs like that left anymore because there's so many freelancers now, you know. So I did that for a couple of years, and then that company went out of business. And when that company went out of business, I felt like, well, the dream's over, you know. I tried to freelance for a little while, but I had a wife and 2 kids. I really needed to do something. So I went out and I got another office job. You know, my Campbell's resume certainly helped. But then, like I said, when COVID happened and I got sent home, that just really changed everything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, now, at the end of every episode, I'm reading off your card. There's like 6 to 10 things that you do.
Yes.
So obviously podcasting is one of them,
Yep.
you know, the video and the audio, but tell me a little bit about what else you do. What are some other things that you offer?
So my passion is music production, obviously. So we can record here, you know, anything from solo vocalists, singer-songwriters, full bands, you know, just whatever. We run the gamut. So that, and then mixing. I am a mix engineer. I would not consider myself, for people who know audio, I would not consider myself a mastering engineer. I can master your stuff, but I'm not an official. I mean, people who know audio know there's levels, you know, and I'm a mix engineer. I'm not I love mixing music. I love the creative art part of that. But the mastering thing is, I mean, it's a whole different beast. So we do that. We do audio books. We do voiceovers. We do original music. I do a lot of original music for some video companies around the country. So we've done, just since I've opened this facility, I've done original music for NBC Universal. I've done original music for Dayquil recently. I did a commercial for them. U.S. Bank, I did something for them a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, we just, you know, whatever comes over.
Fantastic.
I mean,
so how are you getting these those are big names,
Sure.
Brandon. I mean, how are you getting those big names?
So when the COVID thing happened, I just reached out to several video production companies in the country that I knew were, you know, number one, were hiring freelancers, and number two, had these really big accounts. And I had some stuff in my resume from back with the post-production company. I had Home Depot, I had Rigid Tools, I had Fats Cafe, I had, you know, some big names like that. And so that was my demo reel, and I sent it out. And matter of fact, one of the guys that came back to me said, you got on our list because of Home Depot. I mean,
oh my goodness.
You know, when you get big clients like that, it just, sometimes I mean, it's invaluable. Sometimes you would almost do it for no pay because now I have that on my resume. And that's just going to turn into more work and more money. And that's kind of how this industry works. I mean, they trust you because someone at that level trusted you.
Right.
You know, so that's kind of how that snowballed into that.
I think there's a couple of key things that you said for entrepreneurs. One, you know, when COVID happened, you didn't just sit back and you know, post your company name on Facebook.
Right.
you actually put something together, and then you reached out.
Yep.
You know, reached out to all these other places. And then sometimes it only takes one big one, like Home Depot. That kind of stands out to me. So, you know, just, you know, keep working and get that one gold nugget, so to speak, and then use that gold nugget to your advantage, right?
Right. And it's the same in the music industry. It's like, you know, I would do, you know, for a big artist, I mean, I would probably do something for free just to say I worked on X record.
Right.
You know, because that's going to translate into so much business. You have no idea. And I understand that people, they bristle when you say, hey, you can do this for exposure, you know, especially like live, because I've played live music for a lot of years, and I don't want to play for exposure. You're certainly not at, you know, a little local venue in Greenville or whatever. I mean, I have bills to pay, you know, but sometimes there's certain levels of job opportunities that the exposure is absolutely invaluable. And that's one of those opportunities. It's almost like it's the best marketing tool available, you know, to do a job for a big customer like that.
Now, you mentioned fats, and I just want to kind of throw that out there. Wasn't your voice in the fats commercial?
Yes, I was the voice of the Double Barrel Bourbon Burger.
I love that. I love that commercial when you showed that to me.
And now they're bankrupt and out of business. So, I mean, I hope that wasn't
Not
me.
because of your voice.
So I did a lot of music for Fats over the years, but I did that one series of voiceovers too. So yeah, a little bit of dabble in voiceover work, a little bit. You know, I've got a little bit of a Southern twang that's hard to lose. But for Fats, that was perfect. I mean, you know,
Fats
Southern
is that
thing,
local,
and
kind of that local Southern restaurant.
Yep.
Now, speaking of dabbling, I've seen some of your other work. So you're dabbling a little bit in a commercial writing and filming and recording, correct?
So I've always been a creative. So I've always written and created content and things like that. But when I opened this place, I swore, I'm not going to get into video. I don't want to be a jack of all trades. I'm not going to do video. I'm an audio guy. I love music. I love sound. This is what I went to school for. I'm doing audio. And the very first podcast client that I got, they said, "Can you also do video?" And I said, "Yep." So the next day I bought a camera, bought a lens, and I just figured it out, you know. And I'm still figuring it out. I'm still growing, but I mean, the stuff's getting better and better, and people are happy with it. I've got a couple things running on WSPA right now for C3 Wash Pros. Shout out to Clay.
Yeah, I wanted to say, make sure you say their name.
Pros,
let them know, yeah.
And then the Wash Bros podcast, a lot of people may have seen with Matt, the driveway guy, and Clay from C3 do their stuff too. So, yeah, the video's coming along. I'm probably going to add another camera soon and a few more lights. It's just... It's just one of those things where it's all creative. You know, if I don't have to be making records every day. If I can just do something creative and use that muscle, flex that muscle, and get that, you know, scratch that itch, that's enough for me. So yeah, it's been fun.
Well, I think it's really interesting as entrepreneurs. You know, we have to be really careful because what you can do is you can add all of this other stuff to it, and then all of a sudden you've kind of moved away from what you originally intended to do. On the flip side of that, I believe adding things sometimes makes you more well-rounded and able to adapt and adjust to your audience and your consumers and who needs you. So, you know, I think you have to walk that balance, like you said, and be really careful. If music is really your heartbeat, you don't want to find yourself consumed 90% of the time doing something else. You know, you want that 10%, unless it's something that's kind of gone away, which original music's never going to go away.
I hope not. AI is creeping in, but I hope not. So.
I don't think so. So I also know that you've got some really good customers. I don't know if you're able to talk about, but like Clemson, I was listening to some of the acapella stuff that you were doing. That was amazing.
Yeah. So I recently recorded and mixed and mastered the two acapella groups at Clemson, Take Note and Tiger Roar. It's a lot of work, but it's really cool. I mean, you heard you know some of the end products. So that was a lot of fun. We did that, and then I did another acapella group recently. I don't know if I'm becoming the acapella guy, and they didn't have any idea I was doing the Clemson thing, but I did another group here in Greenville called the Tone Setters. And they're getting ready to actually, they cut a 3-song demo and they're getting ready to start going out and performing live. So.
Now, I think I even saw rappers. Did you have somebody in here rapping?
Yeah, I've got several.
You just have this big, huge array of
you know, I've got several
clients.
hip-hop customers. And, you know, the funny thing is, when you were talking about adding additional services, so one of the hip-hop artists that I have in here, I've done 8 or 10 songs with him. I actually shot a music video for one of his songs because he noticed the camera and the gimbal and he's like, "Hey, can you shoot this video? Got this concept." And so we did. We shot a video and
my goodness,
that turned out really cool. It's on YouTube. Young Drelo is his name.
Young Drelo.
YUNG DRALOW. Young Drelo, fantastic.
So you have to call all your clients and say, "Hey, I'm giving you all shout outs on my podcast."
Right? Like everybody's going to get a little bit of love today. So, but he's a great guy, and he's actually from Pickens.
Oh my goodness!
And he's a hip hop artist. He's really, really talented. So you know, check him out too.
So you just officially launched the studio this year,
yes.
Right? So who would you say? And I'm gonna put you on the spot, but what is the most unique, most interesting client that you've had this year that you said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. You know, that person was so interesting," or "That was something new that I've had to try, I've never done before"?
They're all interesting in their own way, I guess. I guess the thing that was unique and I've never tried before was the acapella stuff.
The acapella.
You know, I mean, I was sure I could do it, but not 100%. I mean, a lot of times when you mix a rock record, there's a lot of extraneous noise, and there's mic bleed, and there's a lot going on, and it's a dense mix, and that's part of it. People want to hear amp noise and things like that. But when you got 16 voices and nothing else, there's nothing to hide
Gotcha.
any imperfections. You know what I mean? There's nothing to cover up, and it's got to be perfect. You got to nail it. And the singers don't necessarily have to nail it. If they don't nail it, then I got to nail it in the mix process.
So is it sort of like, if you go in a movie theater and you've got a pimple, they're going to cover that up with makeup, or they're going to use the filters to kind of lighten up your aging. So is music really the same way? So if somebody does make an error,
Kinda
you're able
like
to come in and
that.
clean it up a little bit?
Kind of like that. I mean, you want to get it right at the source. The easiest records to mix are the ones that are very, very well recorded.
Gotcha.
But you don't always have that luxury, and it's nothing against the musicians or the vocalists. It's just when you got 16 people singing individually and then you put them together, there are going to be some little anomalies and different things like that. And, unfortunately, the tuning aspect of it, that's the way modern records are made now, and it's no knock on anybody. And I know there's some artists that probably aren't the greatest, but there's some that really are talented and they're good, but there's an expectation now that a lot of the music that's on the radio is going to sound perfect. And so I think a lot of producers and a lot of mix engineers are making it sound perfect because that's the expectation.
Well, now you've got programs like, and I'll just throw these out, like CapCut. I see a lot of people who are or the reels that you can get on Instagram, or even now Facebook is doing. If you post a video, Facebook will come up and say, make a reel out of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are trying to do these at home musicals, little musical shorts. I mean, what do you think about that? What are you seeing when you see that as someone who has that professional eye? Is that good for like if you're just doing something with your kids, or is that fine typically for a business commercial?
I think it's good if you're doing something like that with your kids. I think there's good in the technology is more accessible to people now, so they're able to create more than they ever did before. I mean, you don't have to go into a multi-million-dollar recording studio now to make a record necessarily. The bad thing is those tools in the hands of people that don't know what they're doing with them is still going to put out
lower quality work,
a lower quality product, and you have the tools that this guy has maybe. But when you listen back to what you've created, it doesn't sound like what's on the radio, and there's a reason for that. I mean, you don't really know. The tools are in the hands of someone who don't really know about. But another thing that's done on the flip side of that is it's kind of degraded the quality that we expect too, because now we're getting accustomed to watching videos with bad sound quality or bad camera angles, or it's just run and gun, kind of throw it up sort of stuff. And the internet's created this, it's almost like dulled us to really high-end things, So,
well, and look, podcasts are the same way. When I first talked with you about coming to the studio, there's a cost in coming to the studio, but at the same time, I originally went out and I bought the mics, and I was like, I'll put up a backdrop, and I'll, put up a table like this, and I'll do it on my own. And the first time I recorded myself and I went back and looked at it, I was like, okay, well, that sounds horrible. And I have no mixing skills. Right. so I'm looking at all of the meters and all of the, the terminology, and I'm like, I don't have a clue what I need to do. So yeah, I could have posted that, but would never have gotten the quality of the podcast that I get by coming into a studio.
Right.
The cars going by, the dogs barking, the scratching, all that stuff is gone when you come into a professional studio.
Right. Yeah. And it starts with the room. I mean, this is a room inside of a room. And there's two doors, and it's well treated and all that stuff. And then you got your microphones, or high quality microphones. They're going into high quality preamps.
Right.
So you get a good sound source from the beginning. And then on the backside of that, there's editing that happens. There's, we're going to clean up some stuff. We're going to, EQ some stuff. We're going to add some compression. We're going to get it up to the right levels. And so it's all those steps in the process that a lot of people either don't think about, or they don't know.
Right.
They don't know how. They don't know they should do it, or they don't know how to do it.
They don't know how to do it, because that was me,
Right.
and I was like, okay, I don't have time to go to school to learn how to do a podcast.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I can speak, I can do that well, but I need somebody else to do the mixing on
Yep.
it. And I think if you're going to put out a quality product, then you need to have the professionals help you with that. And there is a cost that's associated with that.
Yep.
But in the end, when people see quality work, then they think you own a quality company.
Right.
So, yeah, I can hang a sheet, and I can, up
Mm-hmm.
as a backdrop, and I can do a podcast at home. But to really put out a good quality podcast, I think you need to be inside a studio with the professionals cleaning it up.
Well, I appreciate
fixing
that.
little voice,
Yes.
voice mix up at the
And
end.
there is a perception. It's like, I mean, I even, and I'm not a grammar snob or anything like that, but even looking at a business ad on a social media where the grammar's bad, or there's a lot of misspellings or things like that, I'm like, well, what else are you cutting corners on?
That's right.
You know what I mean? If your
Right.
attention to detail for this one little piece of copy that you wrote is not there, then the thing that I'm going to hire you for, what's that going to be like? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Are you going to cut corners on that? Where's the attention to detail on that?
Right.
And it, I could be completely wrong. They could be
Yeah.
the most amazing thing at what they do, but it's just kind of it plants a little seed, like, I don't know. You
Well,
know?
look, even some of the famous young male singers who started out and they recorded something at home on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and then they were discovered.
Yep.
They're still not recording at home anymore.
No, they're not.
They're recording in a studio.
Yep, they got big budgets to
Right?
make those
so,
records.
So, I think maybe starting out, if you just absolutely can't afford to do that, but you need to have those long-term goals. And sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and make the investment,
Yeah.
And look, I'm gonna brag on you a little bit. I mean, I think your pricing, I think you have a heart and a passion for small businesses. You're not free. But I had people charging me way more.
Yeah.
And they didn't even have a studio like you do. And so,
crazy.
you got to be careful who you're looking for out
Yeah.
there. And I think you're very good at what you do, and you're a good, honest man. And so I highly recommend Brandon for
Thank
you guys.
And I've seen some of the, and I've done pricing studies across the country, and obviously in certain places in the country it's going to be more, but some of the prices I've seen are so ridiculously out there. I mean,
Yes.
I would feel like charging what some of the people charge, like I'm robbing someone. I'm like, because it's difficult, but it's not that difficult. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not to the point that some of these people are charging. And I
Yeah.
understand I'm not only charging you for my time and my gear at this point, I'm also charging you for the past 30 years.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? And musicians are the same way. It's like, hey, you're not just paying me to come sing, 20 songs for a couple of hours. You're paying me for the 30 years that I sat in my basement and shredded my fingers,
Yeah.
and learning to play these songs and getting good on my instrument. And those are the things that people don't think about. I put all this time and effort into being a professional at what I
Right.
do. You're paying for that as well. And I've
Yeah.
had people that don't bat an eye and just, will write you a check. And I've had other people that say, but you're just doing, but you're just, and I'm like, you know what? You're welcome to go do it.
Yeah,
You
they don't
know?
understand it, because I can tell you, again, I looked at my recording and I was like in shock, saying, I have no clue. Okay, so I can move it and it's going to color it or it's going to change it. But in the end, it sounded just as bad to me with any adjustments that I made as it did in the beginning, because I'm not the professional.
Right, right.
And listen, I think cameras are the same way. Cell phones today iPhones particularly take these amazing shots of your family. But if I'm going to hang a picture on the wall, I'm going to call Kennedy, which was on one of my other
Yes.
shows, who takes all this time and attention to detail. And, she's going to look and make sure there's nothing behind,
Yep.
behind you when she takes that picture. And you're going to proudly hang that photo on the wall,
Yep.
not necessarily something I shot with my iPhone. So, taking your family pictures or doing a little fun podcast at home, I think it's fine. But if you're wanting to do something professional, do something professional with
Yep.
professionals. I think that's
Yep.
important.
And I tell you another thing, when you own a small business, you quickly learn that your friends who own small businesses, you don't ask them for friends and family discounts.
right.
You pay the rate,
Right, right.
because it's just it's respectful. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I'm in business to. I'm in this business because I love it.
Yeah.
But I also got to take care
You
of my
gotta feed your
family,
family,
and
yeah.
I'm not trying to get. I mean, I'm not wishing and dreaming and praying to get rich. If that
Yeah.
happens, that's fantastic. I just want to make a comfortable living doing what I love. But part of that is I'm going to have to charge a particular
you got to
rate.
feed your family,
Yeah.
And that's Justin and I with Get Local. We originally, when we started this up in York County, we did it for free. And then we very quickly realized, okay, if we keep doing it for free, we'll never have time with our family because we're having to do it after our full-time job.
Yep.
So we're putting another 40 hours in upon those 40 hours, or we've got to be able to charge for it. And, we're not trying to get rich either, but that's what the key is. And I think as a small entrepreneur, that's what you got to do is you got to find people who are passionate about other entrepreneurs who's going to give you a fair price. And I think that's the key. And then when you get a fair price, don't ask for free.
And the other small business owners that I do things for, they don't bat an eye when I, because they understand. I mean, they don't want to have to deal with that either when they go quote their, services. So
I think that's great.
And it's, there's a lot of people in town that are just like working with each other and helping each other out and understanding those kinds of things. And Greenville's been a fantastic place to do things like this. So
now, Brandon, since you've got like 10 things that you guys do, I mean, if we're talking to our listening audience, who should be picking up the phone and calling you today? What kind of people are needing your services?
Well, certainly musicians who want to record anything from demos to finished records. We can do all that. Small businesses who want to create content and control their content. Because here's the other thing I tell people, we're not an agency. We're not a marketing agency. So we're not going to give you a marketing plan. We're not going to, run your website or run your socials or anything like that. If you're looking for a cost-effective way to create some high quality content that you then want to control, you go post it, you go do whatever you want to with it. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about that since you mentioned that, because like a podcast, for instance, this podcast is running about a 30-minute podcast typically, sometimes a little more. So what could someone do with that?
So it's funny. I have a lot of people ask me, why do I want to do video? Because, I mean, yes, most podcasts are consumed audio. Nobody... I don't say nobody. People don't typically sit down at YouTube and watch your 30-minute podcast. The video piece is critical because you can take that 30-minute video and you can chop that up into 10, 15, sometimes 20 little 15-second reels of little nuggets that you said. I mean, maybe I've dropped a golden nugget today. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Maybe I'm just rambling. I don't know. But anyway, if you say something like really great or, some sort of really deep thing that you think might help people or help your business or whatever that people want to hear, make a 15-second reel out of that, throw a caption on it, and throw it on socials, and you'll get a ton of engagement. So for a little bit more money, not only do you have the audio piece where you can go, put it on every podcast service in the world, and people consume podcasts a lot of times when they're working, they got their earbuds in, or when they're driving, or when they're jogging, or whatever. You've also got an opportunity to create 10 to 15 to 20 separate pieces of video content that you can just space out over, and the algorithms are such that you got to post constantly and you got to do, but from one 30-minute sit down, you get 15 pieces of content.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because video is king on social media. Why do you think now Facebook is doing the reels? Started out doing the reels on Instagram. And then, of course, when they bought them, they started saying, hey, video really is king. And people don't really want you to link them back to YouTube. Facebook doesn't. Right. You get lower assistance from them in promoting your videos when you do that. But if you post it on their own page, then they're going to show that video more. So, people that I've talked to are saying that when they post videos, they definitely get more traffic to those videos than just a post with a picture. Yeah.
And when you think about what you're potentially getting for one 30-minute video podcast, all the content that can be created out of that, it's a ridiculously low cost, and then you don't have to pay someone to manage your presence, monthly kind of thing. You just do it on your own. You can just load up 15 and schedule them. I mean, there's some scheduling apps out there like Hootsuite and things like that, but you can also do it in the individual apps themselves, like Instagram, Facebook, schedule those, and then you don't even have to think about it for a while. Just sit back and let that happen.
Well, I'll tell you honestly, for my church, once a month I post YouVersion Scripture of the Day, and I go in on the 30th of the month, and I post a whole month. I sit down, it takes me maybe, 45 minutes, and I just download them and then post them back up, and then I don't have to touch the church posting for another month for the scripture anyway. I post other stuff. But yeah, you're right. And I mean, a lot of people say they don't have time, but if you're the more you do it, the better you get at it. And those are things that are really simple to do. So let you cut those reels up for them, and then they just figure out when to post them and where to post them.
Yep. And consistency is the key with that stuff. I mean, you might have a great piece of content that you post and then you don't post again for 3 weeks. It's not gonna do a lot for you. You got to just keep at it. And sometimes, and a lot of people say, well, I don't have great, fantastic content every day. Well, every fourth or fifth post might be something awesome, but the stuff in between is going to keep you top of mind.
Well, and let me tell you this, my husband's a pastor, and oftentimes he'll preach, and then when we're on the way home, he'll say, well, I don't know. I don't even know why I preached that. I just don't feel like. Then a couple of days later in my women's Bible study, people will be like, oh, I needed to hear that on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes we may think it's not great content, but someone might just see that content that day that needed that content. And so you may not have 50 likes or 100 likes or whatever, but it might be that one that you've just motivated and inspired somebody, and they later come back and do business with you from that one post. So I agree. Consistency is definitely the key.
Consistency, positivity, man. People, I mean, obviously we need that now more than ever, but it feels like it anyway. But just positive stuff about, about what you're doing, about what you're thinking about and dreaming about, and even potentially, lifting someone else up, and other local businesses. I mean, there's a couple other guys in town that do audio stuff, and I make sure to always like and their stuff, and they like my stuff.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
There's plenty of work in Greenville. I mean, there's so many more people coming now than are here now. I mean,
and there's more to come.
Kind of need to stop, maybe. I don't know. But it's good for us. The more people come, the more opportunities there are for business, and that's a big deal.
Yeah. So, Brandon, we do this every week because you're on the other side of the window, as you say. But, the reason why we do it is because, one, we want to introduce these companies to the listeners here in the upstate, because there's some valuable companies that just maybe they're busy running business and they don't have a chance to be at every single networking event, or they're not able to spend the money on the promotion. But there's little golden nuggets in our town. And so I'm glad that you came today, and I'm excited about all the little golden nuggets that we've been able to bring on the show so far, and hopefully there's some more to come. But I want to encourage the listeners. So what would you say if there's someone who's listening right now and they're saying, I'm tired. Brandon, you got it all going on. You are doing great. You got all this business coming in.
I'm tired too.
You're tired too. I mean, they want to quit. What would you tell them?
I mean, obviously the cliche thing is to say, don't quit, but again, you got to have the passion for it. If you're just doing it to check a box, or, because you feel like you have to, or you're obligated or something, it's gonna come through. I mean, you really need to be passionate about what you're doing, and just work hard and stay consistent. I mean, you really can't take, a few days just to sort of, especially when you own a small business. If you're working for somebody, I mean, there's a lot of times when I work for somebody that I kind of turn my brain off for 2 or 3 days, and the check still gets direct deposited.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when you're doing it yourself and it's all on you, you really can't. I mean, you can't snooze,
Yeah.
You got to be, when you're not working, you got to be selling.
Yeah.
And then when you get so much work that you can't sell anymore, you got to hire somebody to do the work so you can sell some more. And that's what it is. I mean, it's just pounding the pavement and coming up with creative ways to market your services and things like that. So I would just say, just don't give up. Just work hard. Seek out a mentor.
Yeah,
that's a huge thing. I mean, whether it be a business coach that you pay for, which I think they're fantastic, or just somebody who just is willing to mentor you, that's gone where you want to go and has done it before. Those guys, number one, they'll give you valuable insights and practical things you can do. But number two, they'll inspire you.
Yeah.
I mean, and they'll tell you their story, and a lot of times their story is pretty much rags to riches. I mean, there's a lot of guys in this town who are doing well that were not born with a silver spoon. You know, how did they do it?
Yeah, how'd they get there?
Yeah.
You know, did they just get a Home Depot lucky charm, or
Right.
did hard work pay off?
Right. And, you know, I see them on your podcast. I mean, I sit on the other side of this glass and I listen to these people talk and I go, man, that makes me want to, you know, work a little harder and stand up a little straighter and go do my thing, you know. So I think being in those kinds of communities are a big deal too.
And important. And you didn't say this, but in a way you did. You got to check yourself too.
Yeah.
So don't give up, but
Right.
check yourself. Are you really doing
Right.
what you need to do? And I think that's good advice and not often given.
Because
a lot of people do want to do the cliche and say,
Right.
just don't quit. Well, check yourself and make sure you're doing your part.
Yep.
You know, you're not taking 3 days off.
Yeah, and you know, I can sit here in the studio, and people come in the studio, and they're just blown away by the space and by the gear, and it's awesome. And I can sit in that chair in there and say, "Well, I've got this space, and I've got this gear, and I've got all this knowledge. Why are people not
Coming to me?"
coming to me?"
Yeah.
Well, you got to go to them. You know, you can't sit on the couch and just expect to, you know, I don't know, Taylor Swift to call you up one day and say, "Hey, I want to cut a record at your studio." You know, you got to go after that stuff, and you gotta ask, you gotta find the decision makers, and you gotta just pester the heck out of them, and don't think that you're bothering people. That's the other thing. Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, you know, and a lot of people, you think, "Oh my gosh, here they are again. They're getting on my nerves." You got to kind of be an irritant sometimes.
Listen,
you know?
I took a call the other day from someone and I said, "You just won't give up, will you?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Then let's talk."
Boom.
Because
Yes, that's the person right there.
I was just like, I can't take it anymore. You keep calling me. So, and then I'm actually considering their product too. So,
Wow,
it was a good thing that they were persistent.
And
They
I
were
tell you another
annoying,
thing
but
I
they were
love
persistent.
too, and I've never said no. I'm mentoring somebody now, a high school kid, and we're doing a project for her senior project. This is the second one of those I've done for one of the charter schools here in town. And I got somebody coming in at one who is interested in the same thing, who wants me to mentor them. You know, and I've never said no to somebody who wants to be mentored in audio and music because I love it so much. I geek out on this stuff, man, and I want to find somebody else who loves it as much as I do, so we can geek out together. Because my wife doesn't care anything about it.
She don't even
So
talk
I
about it
go
when you go
home
home.
and I talk about microphones and compressors and equalizers, and she's like, you know, I don't know what that is, and I don't care. You know? So I love
Typical
mentoring
home,
people.
though, by the way. Married couple's house.
Yes. I love her to death, and you know, she could care less what we do here. You know, she thinks it's cool and she thinks it's interesting, and she wants me to be successful, but she doesn't know a compressor from anything. So, but I love to do that. I love, you know, people come in that also are interested in this stuff, and we can just bat around ideas and collaborate, and you teach me something, I teach you something. Because that's the thing, I've been doing this since I started when I was 18 or 19. I started playing music when I was 7. I learn something new all the time.
Isn't that great?
It is. It is.
That is wonderful. I think that's important too, because you know, my husband went to seminary and he said he had this little old man that could barely even creep up the steps. And when he got up there, he said every day he would start his class and he would say, "I learned something new today." And you know, my husband said he was inspired by that this man was, you know, in his 80s, could barely climb the stairs to get into the seminary classroom to teach, but yet he would walk in the room and start it with, "I learned something new today." You know, I think we all need to be learning something new.
Yeah,
every
and you
day,
got to humble yourself in that way. You never arrive. You know, I'm never going to be as good as I want to be. You know what I mean? Or to the point where I go, "You know what? I've got it whipped. That's it. No more." I mean, I'm always learning new techniques and new pieces of gear and stuff. And it's funny you mentioned that about the seminary guy. I read somewhere where a pastor got up one time to preach and he said, "Look, 75% of what I'm going to say today is right. 25% of what I'm going to say today is wrong. And if I knew the 25% that was wrong, I would fix
I wouldn't say it.
You know what I mean? But it's like, you know, sometimes you just don't know. You're just doing the best you can, and you're learning as you go. And maybe next time it'll be 80% right. Maybe next time, I don't know, you know.
Well, but it sounds like you're ever changing and ever evolving. And in your technology, you know, your industry, you've got to be. So if you're not learning something new, then you're going to be old and outdated, and you're not going to be able to produce those good quality videos, music, podcasts, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, when I started doing this, it was large format consoles that took up half the room and 2-inch tape. And if you wanted to make an edit, you had to lay the tape down on the little miter box and cut it with a razor blade and just hope and pray that you cut it in the right place. I mean, things have changed a lot since then, you know. But yeah, you just got to keep keep moving and keep, learning new stuff. And the video thing has really stretched me because I didn't know anything about video when I started doing that. And I've learned a ton. I mean, about lighting and about lenses and about aperture and all that stuff. And I'm still nowhere close to. I have friends who are videographers. Yeah. I'm a guy with a camera.
They're your mentors.
Yes, they are, and they've helped a lot. I mean, they come over and say, Brandon, that you're stupid. Don't do that. You got to do this, but all those resources are available. You know what I mean? So I don't have to be necessarily the expert in every field. Yeah. I got friends, and I got people who are willing to come help, and to make it what it needs to be, because I don't want it to leave the studio if it's not right.
Yeah, that's your name on it, right?
That's my name on it.
And listen, that's the advice I want to give you guys as listeners is, look, when it comes right down to it is, as an entrepreneur, you're probably really good at your trade, whatever you started your business for, but you're not going to be good at every area and discipline that you need within that business. Right. And so you've got to decide, okay, I can't afford to hire everybody to do, human resources, sales, marketing, et cetera, but you got to figure out a way to find those resources at an affordable price and kind of prioritize them and say, like you said, I've got videographer friends. That's not me, and to be able to recognize that and know that maybe that's something, if you're going to do something really huge on the videography side, you're going to bring your friend in to help you out, right?
Or I'm going to send them to my friend. I mean, there's some things that are just out of the scope of what I can do. And I know that, thankfully, I'm not going to charge you thousands of dollars to try to do something that I don't think I can pull off, I mean, and that's another big piece of it. You got to know what your limits are, and you got to know what you don't know, and find the people who can do that and bring them in.
For you. That's great. Well, I'm so glad I got you on this side of the window. It was hard for me to do that for a long time. I've been asking, we record ahead, so I've got some recordings ahead, but so y'all don't know how many weeks I've been trying to get Brandon on this side, but I'm so glad he joined me today. So Brandon, I got one question. This is a surprise question. I changed his question.
Yeah, because I know the surprise question. I've been thinking about it too.
I figured he would already know. Normally I ask you, what is your superpower? Go ahead and tell me, since you've been thinking, what would your superpower be and why?
So the flying thing is probably intriguing to me, because that's actually a real superpower. I was going to say like really like supersonic hearing, so I would know. So I would know every single frequency that's bothering me, and I can cut it or whatever. But probably flying. I mean, I just want to just get somewhere quick.
I think almost everybody
traffic in Greenville.
Oh man, yeah.
You gotta fly.
You gotta fly. Right? Get somewhere. All right. So since you knew that one and you got to study it, I come with another question.
Oh boy.
So if you could be any animal in the world, what animal would you be and why? I have to give him one he didn't know.
I'm thinking like a big cat, like a lion or a tiger or something like that.
See, it's going to be interesting when I ask this question to see if men and women answer it different. I knew you were going to say that.
Really?
A big cat. I think a lot of guys are going to say a big cat.
You didn't think I was going to say sloth?
No.
I don't strike you as a sloth.
Tweety bird, no. A penguin? No, none of those.
I don't know. It's just an apex predator, kind of king of the jungle. When I hear king of the jungle, I'm
beautiful.
Yeah, and they're beautiful.
They're magnificent is a good word. Magnificent creatures.
I like that. Yeah,
magnificent.
So I mean, the first thing that popped into my head was a tiger. But I'd settle for a lion. Like king of the pride land kind of thing.
Well, thank you for taking time to not only sit on this side, but for the amazing job that you do. I want to let our audience know, normally this is where I really just give you all the stuff that Brandon does, but he shared it with you today. But listen, if you want someone who has integrity, someone who puts out a good product, someone who cares about small businesses, that's Brandon. And not just small businesses. Look, you heard him. He's doing a lot of big businesses as well. So I hope that this little nugget gem here in your very own city is someone that you're going to pick up the phone and call. So tell them how to reach you, Brandon. What's the best way?
You can reach me at 864-414-5560. 864-SOUND on Facebook, 864_SOUND on Instagram. Also 864sound.com is my website. You can go fill out the contact page, and that goes right into my inbox. Brandon at 864sound.com. A lot of ways to reach me. You can come by the studio, 25 Sweetbriar Road, Suite B9 in Greenville, South Carolina. We're right off Pleasantburg Drive near Pecknail Music and Bob Jones. Just come see the space. I mean, I love for people to just come and see the space. I mean, they don't have to.
It's gorgeous, y'all.
They
It
don't
really
have
is.
to buy anything. There's no money involved. Just come by and see what we're doing and see if it's something that you might be interested in being a part of. And we can do a lot of stuff here, and it's just a cool place. I love it. It's my happy place.
It is a cool
sure.
place. And I will tell you, when I came in, he didn't hold me at gunpoint until I decided to do a podcast. So he's not going to force you.
Nope.
But if you come see it and you come meet Brandon, you're gonna want to do some type of business with 864 Sound. So come on in. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for always. You can follow us on all of the podcast platforms that are out there. You can follow us on Facebook. You can also follow us on getlocalconnect.com. And you can reach me at JoAnne at getlocalsc.com. So thank you for joining. And please come back when I bring us another local business that is another gym here in our upstate area. Thank you for joining. Have a great day. Bye.